statements. They were professional but kind, offering mom tissues and speaking gently to me. They listened to the recording of Brandon's confession multiple times. They watched the bar footage on our laptop. They took the journal as evidence, handling it carefully with gloved hands. One detective said they'd been having doubts about Dad's case anyway. The forensics had never quite added up, but the pressure to close the case had been intense. Brandon's confession filled in all the gaps. They put out an arrest warrant for Brandon that night, but he'd disappeared. His apartment was empty, cleaned out in a hurry. His car was gone. The police said not to worry, they'd find him. They put a patrol car outside our house just in case. Mom and I didn't sleep that night. We pushed the couch against the front door and sat in the living room with all the lights on, jumping at every sound. The next morning, Uncle Henry called. He'd heard from his construction buddies that Brandon had been spotted at a motel 2 towns over, trying to pay cash for a room. The police were on their way. By noon, they had him in custody. He'd tried to run but didn't get far. They found evidence in his car linking him to the original murder weapon. He'd kept the actual knife all these years like some sick trophy, hidden in a lockbox in his trunk. The knife from the crime scene had been a decoy, but the real one still had traces of the victim's blood in the handle's crevices. Brandon tried to deny everything at first. He said I'd faked the recording using AI, that Mom was lying to protect me because she felt guilty about Dad, but the evidence was overwhelming. The bar footage showed him entering that bathroom. His fingerprints were on the real murder weapon once they tested it properly. The forensics that hadn't matched Dad suddenly made perfect sense when applied to Brandon. Even the angle of the wounds matched Brandon's height, not Dad's. Faced with everything, Brandon finally broke. He confessed fully in exchange for a plea deal. He admitted to planning the whole thing, to framing Dad, to manipulating Mom. He even admitted to things we didn't know about. Other crimes in other states, other victims who'd been blamed for things they didn't do. The detective said Brandon was a serial predator who'd been getting away with it for years, moving from place to place, always finding vulnerable women with kids. Dad's lawyer filed for an emergency appeal based on the new evidence. The judge reviewed everything and ordered Dad's immediate release. After 8 months in prison for a crime he didn't commit, Dad was coming home. Mom and I drove to pick him up. The ride was silent except for the radio playing softly. Mom kept crying, dabbing at her eyes with tissues. I didn't know what to say, my throat tight with emotion. When the prison gates opened and Dad walked out, he looked smaller than I remembered. Thinner, older, his hair more gray than brown now, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. I ran to him and hugged him tighter than I'd ever hugged anyone. He smelled different, like industrial soap and sadness, but he was still my dad. He held me and cried into my hair, whispering that he'd missed me so much, that he'd never stopped believing I'd know the truth. Mom stood back, unsure, wringing her hands. Dad looked at her for a long moment. Then he said they'd talk later, that right now he just wanted to go home. The drive back was quiet except for Dad asking small questions. How was school? Had I grown taller? Was my favorite restaurant still open? Normal dad questions.